think we have full attendance. Okay. Let me check out my agenda up here. All right, it's 7:01. So I'd like to call to order the Wabasha City Council meeting of Tuesday, January 5th, our first meeting of the year 2021. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. We have full representation of council. We have no guest speakers that I'm aware of tonight, unless I need to be notified anything from City Hall. Okay. We have no public comment period, or we have a public comment period if anybody would like to state a comment for council's consideration. The process for doing so, if you haven't done Zoom before, is just to unmute yourself. That's a little button down in the far left corner of the window. If you're muted, you'll see a red slashed microphone in front of your own image. So unmute yourself. Go ahead and state your name and your address for the record, and feel free to comment to council. While council doesn't make a habit of responding to the public comments, we're eager to hear from anyone, and council may choose to respond if appropriate. Any public comment?
I have a public comment. This is KK and I'm at 224 East 3rd Street. And this is for when you get to the part of the agenda which talks about declaring vacancy for Darren Shealy, the unfortunate situation. Yeah, I understand from reading through the agenda that you can do 3 things. And what I would like to say that from a public perspective, figure out which of those 3 processes will help move Wabasha forward at the right pace with the right thinking. So you guys are in the best situation to do that. But in the event that you feel great about appointing a person with no process, that would be my recommendation, because Craig Fulcom lost by 20 votes, so he's popular. He's obviously respected by the council. In 2018, 19, and 20, he was council president, and he's got the experience. So we have some new thinking coming with new people, but I think also he would help move the council forward. So I hope that you consider these thoughts.
Thank you, Kay. Any other public comment? I see we do have a couple of people. I want to make sure I give time. I'm not trying to just drag out the time, but Zoom can be a little intimidating. If you haven't done Zoom before, or even if you have, it doesn't always work the way you want it to. So I'm going to give a moment for anybody to go ahead and pop in and state their name and address for the record, and feel free to make comment. If you're also new to Zoom, you'll notice those little options to unmute yourself or mute yourself. They seem to disappear. You just need to hover down at the bottom of the window to make them reappear. And there is a chat function as well in the center of the screen, center bottom of the screen, if you can't seem to make your audio work. Okay. I'm hearing none. I'm not seeing any chats. I don't know if, I guess I'm not the facilitator. Nothing coming through on City Hall side. Okay. We have plenty of attendance. So I just want to make sure we can hear from the public if anybody wants to comment. As far as changes and additions to the agenda, we have a time now for any members of council to make a change or addition to the agenda as it's currently printed. Any changes or updates?
I think you should pull 8-1 and pull 8-1 out of the consent agenda for separate discussion.
Okay, 8-1 is our 2021 appointments and annual designations. So we can make that, maybe Jess, you'll help me out, Jess. Maybe we'll make that general business 10-3, just so I don't forget. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, I'll make my
presentation.
Probably
want to formally add the additions that were put on this morning that we updated the agenda. Because everything is so electronic, we can't bring sheets to hand out formally at council with you here. So we've added them to the agenda, but if you could accept the agenda as is tonight with the additions of 8.5 and 10.2. We would
Yep.
appreciate that.
So those are consent agenda. 10.8.5 is the January end of year warrants. And then 10.2 is the actual declaration of a vacancy. So would someone like to make a motion to accept that agenda as modified?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Woodley, second from Walrick. We have to take a roll call vote, I suppose.
Woodley?
Yes.
I can't hear. Friedmeier?
Yes.
Walrick?
Yes.
Sella?
Yes.
Moyer?
Yes.
And Durand?
Yes. And I will say, after literally hundreds, maybe thousands of Zoom calls in my life, the hardest thing to manage is that feedback you guys are dealing with, and you're doing a great job. Having two computers in the same room, it's just a really big, it's an issue that it always makes itself present. So good job. Okay, so we have an agenda before us. I don't love to have a written statement, but for some reason with the new year, I don't know, I was writing my New Year's letters. I feel like I should say something formal about this transition to new year. It certainly is a page that I think we're all eager to turn. So I'm just going to read a quick message. I just want to say good evening and Happy New Year to all. While punctuated with positive moments, it can only be said that much of what transpired last year during a global pandemic has tested our patience and will, and at times it's tested our spirit. But as was hoped, a light has already glimmered in the earliest parts of 2021, and we can look forward to better days ahead. COVID-19 case reports are on the decline generally since mid-November in the state and in our county. Vaccines are being administered to our healthcare and other frontline workers, including our own fire and emergency services volunteers. Both of these realities have been of particular significance to me as indicators that the end really is in sight. Not here at this moment, but it is within reach. While many of us wish that the countdown to the new year would mean a figurative or even a literal switch to a new state of the world, we've learned that we must remain committed to the best practices that have helped mitigate transmission of the infection thus far. While recently in a blessed downturn, the 14-day trend in average daily cases in Wabasha County does still outpace neighboring counties. And that's per the public data that I have at my disposal. So it's still important that we enforce all that we've already learned. Please keep up with face coverings and physical distance when at all possible when you're with those outside your household. And when the opportunity presents itself, I sincerely hope you'll accept the chance to be vaccinated, both for your safety and the safety of your household, and of course, for those that you'll come into contact with as restrictions are lifted. As for all that did get done in 2020, and it's always great to get the paper on the day that we have council because it's a reminder of all that it really is occurring in our world, even though so much feels like it's at a standstill. I want to thank city staff, commissions, and departments and council for your unwavering commitment to charter a course through the most challenging year in recent collective memory. Thank you to our school district and county for nimble leadership as challenges loomed on the horizon and then faced our citizens and our communities head on. Thank you to our healthcare settings and all frontline workers who maintained critical supply chains, provided essential services and goods, and ensured the safety of the community through a long and unpredictable year. The risk faced by these individuals in these roles does not go without notice, and we know they're not free from risk still. Thank you very much. And to our citizens, remember that the glimmer of early 2021 and the resolve that it can generate in all of us, we will have much to celebrate a year from now. We will have weathered a tremendous challenge together and we'll be stronger for it. So I hope you had a peaceful new year. I'm sure it was very different for some than it has been in years past. And for those that like to have a quiet December 31st, hopefully it was familiar, and there are some beacons of change for us to actually wrap our hands around in the early part of this year. I welcome any comment from council, and then if we have none, we'll move on to the committee reports. Any comments from council? All right, we will do committee reports and Wabasha Good News. Feel free to build good news into your committee reports. I'm going to go, like I always do, kind of through the grid. Tim, I'll start with you from planning.
We didn't have a December planning meeting. Our next one will be on the 12th, next Tuesday.
Sounds good. John, Port Authority. Forget, did we,
I'm sorry?
I meant to defer I can't remember, you had to miss a meeting related to work and I can't remember if it was this last one.
Indeed it was. So the Port Authority did meet. I was absent. I was able to listen to the recording. Thanks, Tyler, for sending that on to me. The one thing I can report, what was most pressing that evening was an application for Port Development Assistance Program, or PDAP. Our city engineer prepared that an application for us, and we needed to fund that. What that is a grant program, this one through MnDOT, to help us continue to amass funds to develop the port. That's going to help us with the DMMP project with the Army Corps. And the DMMP stands for, what does it stand for? Dredge Materials Management Plan. So that was all approved, and the application has been submitted on time, and we await the decision of the powers that be. That was MnDOT, that was this application, but yeah, I think that was about it that was most pressing or most important.
I've seen the application full and I understand it's not a terribly long turnaround. I think it's a January, I don't know, I guess I don't know when they'll communicate it, but it sounds like their review is later this month.
Yes, it is. It's really, really quick turnaround.
Yeah, thanks to Brian Mullum and his colleagues who helped us complete that. All right, I can go to Brian for utilities.
Hi, not much to report. I missed our meeting yesterday, but all we had was approval of minutes and approval of warrants. So there was no other discussion, nothing crazy.
Okay. And we don't have, I don't think we have Tony with us tonight. I don't know if there's any updates that you're aware of in the administration related to streets. Okay. Or parks. All right, then I'll move. I say that they did not meet. Okay. And I don't want to put Ed on the spot, but Ed, I always want to give you a chance. If there's anything from the ambulance service that you'd like us to know, please go ahead and chime in.
As far as the ambulance service, we've been kind of dealing with our new rig a little bit. Tim kind of gave you a heads up on what was really going on. I believe it went to all council members. It did not, Jeff? So,
Ed, I didn't send it out to everybody. I just sent it to Emily.
okay, do you still have that, Tim?
I can forward it after the meeting.
Okay, so basically Tim and I had a kind of a gathering with the Rev Group, the group that sold the ambulance to us, Ford itself, Ford Motor Company out of Rochester, the Rochester Ford Company, and then Fire Safety was also on that. And basically they told us that a GPS computer system was not communicating with others and was not allowing the truck to start it. It was intermittently starting. So they believe they have found the whole caboodle that is giving us this big mess. And they basically turned the truck over to Fire Safety this week to finish up the rest of the build that it was supposed to have a month ago. So we believe we're done with the situation. I'm kind of expecting the truck maybe next week to hit our shop again. I was going to follow up on that tomorrow. So other than that, our crew is getting vaccinated and we're staying healthy. We haven't met with ambulance commission. We were trying to get a time together and we just could not get that done. So that should be all I have. You guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, just keep us posted. I'm sure Tim's Tim's summary of the scenario will cover the situation you just described. So we hope I hope there's resolve and they're able to figure it out. And they're complicated rigs. So
I guess I did have, after Tim and I met with them, I did have another conversation via telephone with the same group of people, and they said that the rig was done and they're going to extend our warranty another 6 months due to the issue. So that was as far as we got with that. And I was kind of looking for a guarantee, a written guarantee of something, like if it went wrong, that this was the last chance that we were getting a new rig or something of that nature. a new chassis under it, but I don't know if that's, we're gonna give it a shot and see what happens.
Sure. Well, keep us posted.
Mhm.
All right, any questions for Jean? I'm sorry, for Ed? All right. And any other reports? Otherwise, we'll take an administrator's report from City Hall staff.
Been pretty quiet here over the
Holiday.
holiday, yeah. We are trying to gather up and get ready for all the year-end reports and making sure we've got everything tied away that way. Our audit will be here the first week in February, so we're gearing up to close up 2020 and be ready for our audit. So that's a lot of what's happening.
Sounds good. Anything from Jess or Tyler? All right. Okay, so we have our consent agenda minus what was 8.1, which is the appointments and annual designations. So we have on there on our consent agenda approval of our 12.1 council minutes, our 12.15 special council minutes, our January warrants, and our January end of year 2020 warrants. Do we have a motion to approve that consent agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Walrick, second from Councilmember Sulla, and we'll take a roll vote.
Walrick,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Sulla,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. All right, we haven't a public hearing tonight, so under general business 10.1, we have a celebration insofar as electing our council president. So we have an acting mayor, and among council members, we need someone who performs the duty of the mayor during the mayor's disability or absence from the city, or if there's a vacancy until a successor has been appointed. Jeff has very capably served us in 2020 and 2019, and before that, Craig Falcom served. So we could entertain a motion or a nomination for a council president for the year of 2021. And don't be embarrassed to nominate yourself if it's a role you're willing to fulfill.
I nominate, this is Dean, I nominate Brian Woodley.
I think we can consider that a motion. Do we have any other, do we have a second? And then we can have discussion.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Tim. So now we have discussion, I guess, including Brian's willingness to serve in the role.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thanks for your willingness, Brian. And thanks for your service, Jeff. I just say this over and again. This is a real pleasure to be on council with a group of people who's responsible. Whenever I do the committee reports and think about everybody's contributions, not only to these meetings, but to all the other meetings that occur. It's really valuable when that leadership moves around, and lots of people have played a lot of different roles that make council functional. So this is one of those. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. If we have any further discussion, speak now or we'll take a roll vote.
Sulla,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate it. All right.
Emily, you're on mute.
Thank you. We also have under general business this added item at the top of the meeting declaring a vacancy. So our city charter provides provision that in this case is more specific. I guess maybe more specific isn't inappropriate, but it gives us guidance as to how and when we need to fill a vacancy on our council. I had anticipated welcoming Darren Shealy to council. He was elected in the November election. I think he would make a great member of council. It was determined through some sort of issue spotting about how we might function with our fire chief on our council, that in fact, that is an incompatible office with council. I thank our city's attorney for helping to sort through that. Is not a straightforward issue, not as simple as reading the charter or even the statute for that matter. So Mike Flaherty, thank you for helping to help council be educated on that. It leaves us with Darren electing to remain in his fire chief role, for which I'm really grateful, though I would have been enthusiastic to have him on council. His leadership as a chief is really important, and had we not been looking at a vacancy on council, we'd be looking to fill a vacancy in that chief role. So a difficult situation, but Darren was resolved from my earliest conversations with him that his fire department is where he remains committed, even though he was committed to serving in council as well, should there not be an incompatibility in those offices. So I'm going to look to Mike to just kind of outline, as he has for us in this portion of the agenda, the issues that we have in front of us, just in a fairly procedural way, so that we can declare that vacancy. And then after we declare the vacancy, we can decide what our options are for filling the vacancy. So I'll let you take it away, Mike. Yeah, Mike, go ahead. I think at this time, it's best that this just comes from you directly. And thanks for being with us.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Can people hear me? So I'm just going to briefly go through just a few points. So there's 3 steps when there's a vacancy in council, and vacancies, just as a broad overview, can happen for a number of reasons, death, resignation, not filling, meeting legal requirements, such as moving out of a ward or possibly moving out of town for a job change or something. So all kinds of reasons vacancies can occur. In this particular case, the vacancy occurred, has not yet occurred, but the mayor received a written statement from the council person-elect Shealy that he intended not to take the oath of office. So once he wrote that email, this was an email that came yesterday, and then it wasn't specific enough, so I requested that he make it more specific, and then he rewrote the email, and it was specific that he does not intend to take the oath of office. So then the question is, when and how do you declare a vacancy? And so your charter, it's sort of complicated in your city because you've got a charter that has a lot of provisions about this. But there's state statutes and then there's charter provisions. And this was not in the packet. I sent this by email, but it was one of the statutes that didn't make it in the packet, but I'm just going to read it. It's Minnesota Statute 410.21, and just chapter 410 is the chapter that deals with charter cities, not statutory cities. You're a charter city. And it says this: the provisions of any charter of any such city adopted pursuant to this chapter shall be valid and shall control as to nominations, primary elections, and elections for municipal offices, notwithstanding that such charter provisions may be inconsistent with any general law or relating thereto, and such general laws shall apply only insofar as consistent with the charter. So what that basically means is, in terms of election procedures, your charter governs above state law. So the question is, well, what do you have to do? So your charter says in section 2.05, vacancies in the council, the first thing it says is that you have to declare a vacancy by resolution. That's not actually in state law, but I've done it a number of times in other cities, and it's done by resolution every time, even though it's not required by state law. So really that's not adding much, but you do have to do it by resolution. So I drafted a resolution yesterday, and then after he updated his email, I changed it and resent it today so that it was accurate. And so if you adopt that resolution, that would be the declaration of a vacancy. So that's what you have to do. Then the question is, when do you do that? So there's statutory provisions about that, and there's charter provisions about that. And the charter provisions, and this is where it kind of gets complicated, and I don't know how much detail you want, but section 2.05, if you read that section, it goes through the criteria upon which a vacancy occurs under charter. But that charter provision is silent. That charter provision is silent as to the situation we currently face. The situation we currently face is the council member elect sent a written statement of his intent that he's not going to take the oath of office. So that fact scenario is not covered by your charter. So then the question is, and there's a number of things that are covered by the charter, such as death, resignation, and you can read it, but not a council member being elected and then making a written statement that they're not going to take the oath of office. So then the question is that fact scenario covered by state law? And it is. And that's in Minnesota Statute 351.02, which reads as follows: every office shall become vacant on the happening of either of the following events before the expiration of the term of such office. And there's 8 parentheticals. Number 6 reads this: the incumbent's refusal or neglect to take the oath of office. So that's what we have here. So you don't have a charter provision that applies, but there is a statutory provision that applies. And so because of that, now we have a written statement that they're not going to take the oath of office. The statute says the office shall become vacant. So when we receive that written correspondence, that's the vacancy right there. The resolution is to more or less memorialize that vacancy and to comply with the charter provision that requires a resolution. So with all that in mind, there's 3 steps to, it's like a three act play. You declare a vacancy, then you fill a vacancy, and then you have a special election if needed. So we're only at the first step tonight, and that's just declaring the vacancy. So what I told the mayor was, and there's a lot, let me just fast forward to the special election part of it. I'm not going to get into detail tonight. I don't think it's worth it unless somebody has questions, but you have special charter provisions that are different than state law in that regarding that process. But if you adopt the resolution to declare the vacancy tonight, that's the first step. Then your charter says you must fill the vacancy, quote, forthwith, unquote. So what does forthwith means? It means quickly and without wasting time. I don't read that to mean, I don't think a fair reading of that can mean that you have to do it tonight or the exact moment that the vacancy is declared. That would be impossible. And it's very common, to have a process for filling the vacancy. So, so what I suggested to the mayor, and you can, to be perfectly honest with you, if you're not going to fill the vacancy tonight, whether you adopt the resolution tonight or not is moot, really. But if you're prepared based on the mayor's statement that council member Shealy sent a written correspondence, I don't know if she's provided that to the council or not, but it was just a short email that says he's not going to take the oath of office. So if you take that as the act under statute that declares a vacancy, you could adopt that resolution tonight. Then I suggest you have, this is a regular meeting, so you can amend the agenda at a regular meeting, not a special meeting, but a regular meeting. This is your regular meeting. So I think it's perfectly appropriate for the council to have a discussion tonight, and maybe not make a conclusion, maybe make a conclusion about the process that you want to use to fill the vacancy. And that there is no legal requirement in terms of that process. I looked through some of our files at the firm this afternoon to see how other cities have done it. I know that I dealt with it in Plainview when the mayor Isabel resigned and then was reappointed mayor later on, but he resigned for a health reason. And then the mayor that took his place resigned, and then they reappointed him to take the position that he resigned from. But in that case, I believe they did they solicited like applications, and then they had a discussion and voted. So you could do that, or you could not do that. You could just have a discussion, or you could come up with a different process. And I know that's kind of, this all happened late. So he just made this statement yesterday. And what I told the mayor earlier was I didn't think it was fair for me to do this work be honest with you, until he made that statement, because really he won the election. He should have the right to decide what to do. And I didn't think it was fair or appropriate for me to presume what he should do. You know, and by doing this research, it's kind of like telling him, well, we're doing this because you're going to have to resign. And I didn't want to do that. You know, it's his decision, and he made that decision yesterday, formally yesterday. So, so that's why you might not be fully prepared to discuss the process, and you don't have an administrator. So this would be an administrator sort of thing to give options of how you want to go about to fill the vacancy. So with all that in mind, is that clear, or did I talk too fast? Does anybody have any questions?
I think it's clear, Mike. It's relatively complex, but we're good readers, and you outlined it, carefully and clearly. I want to be clear too that Darren has been very, straightforward through this entire process, despite the complexity of it. Probably no one's more invested. Certainly, no one's more invested in the outcome of the decision than him. And he made a public statement that was very positive, and I applaud him for that. I too did not want to press him on this in terms of making a formal written statement, because as Mike stated, once we have that formal written statement, then we need to then council, has the responsibility to act. So thank you, Darren, for his verbal communication with us has been consistent and clear throughout. But I didn't want to leap ahead either and presume, he had this time to think about it. He didn't have the opportunity to take the oath of office until the change of the year. So he's been more than transparent and communicative throughout.
Mayor, I would just add that research related to the incompatibility of offices was complicated, very complicated.
Very, yeah.
Not a straightforward issue at all.
Right. I know you and I were hoping and instinctually and perhaps optimistically that would be, my statement to Mike was, the reality is in a small community, there are only so many people who are qualified, willing, and able to serve in these roles, various offices. And that incompatibility, limits, for good reason, it limits a conglomeration of power, but it also limits who can fulfill the role, which is essentially a service role. So I applaud Darren for running, and he had every right to do so, and ran a great campaign. And I think the voters that backed him will remain supportive, but this incompatibility piece is more complicated than our city's attorney even expected, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah.
It was complicated. I mean, there isn't a lot of case law, and there's a lot of attorney general opinions, and it's just complicated. It's not a clear issue. I think it's more clear in your case, but to get to that analysis, I mean, we wanted to make sure that was an important memo. I wanted to make sure that it was correct and no stone was left unturned, put it that way.
Hey, Mike, does this, just to raise another possible can of worms, but does this apply to other council members that are employed by the ambulance service as EMS?
So the mayor was talking, but she was muted. I didn't know if she wanted to say.
No, go ahead, Jeff. That's a question that's pertinent to Mike's comments. I was just going to draw our attention to the fact that we have a draft resolution, but go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Address that.
Yes, I mean, so that was brought up. Council member Sala, that was brought up. So, my analysis really did focus on the public official role. And I was looking at the designations that you pulled from the consent, and he's actually two public officials. I didn't know. The fire chief and then the
EMS. Emergency manager.
Emergency manager.
Yeah. And so, but I did, for thoroughness, when I wrote the first draft of that memo, I thought, well, that's really the end of it. I mean, the employee part really doesn't matter because of his role as chief, and this attorney general opinion that says the volunteer chiefs can't be on the council. But I did research it anyway and use Brandon Fitzsimmons because he's kind of the employment law guru to help with that. So I was asked that question, and my answer to it was maybe. My answer is maybe. And and then my next question was, do you want me to do the same research that I did for the fire chief for those employees and write another memo about that? And the answer to that was not yet, or not, no. But I could do that research, and, they're volunteers, but they get compensation. And so it's kind of like, you read my memo, so you can kind of get the analysis of what I might say, but I mean, you got to research it. There could be some statute or attorney general opinion about that I haven't found. So the answer is maybe, but I haven't looked into it, and I'd have to research it. I couldn't say tonight. But I would also say it might be worth considering looking at, reorganizing the charter commission and maybe looking at that charter a little bit.
Yeah, each time we have this issue where it's sort of like our charter, and that's the function of a charter, and that's the sort of the privilege of charter cities. But each time we have a situation where the charter complicates things, and it's not clear what the intent of, when Mike and I started looking into it, it's, I read the original intent of the charter and thinking about my role as mayor. I remember reading the charter, and there's, explicit that, you can't, I read it this way, thinking about my role. You can't serve council, create a position of employment, and then the next year apply for that employment. You can't be on council, raise the salary of an employee role in the city, and then jump into that role. And I think that's the kind of thing that makes a lot of sense. When you think about other roles that an individual might play within the city, volunteer or otherwise, it's less clear to me what the spirit of that charter was. And so that's when Mike and I got sort of in this quick philosophical discussion about a charter commission. And he appropriately cautioned me that's a lot of work. It certainly can be done. There'd have to be the will to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's just something to think about. I mean,
this is Dean. This is probably the 4th or 5th council I've been on that has talked about looking at the charter and doing something about it. And I think it's time we really look at it and do something about it. Because there's been discussions, we run into this problem all the time. We're a small city, yet we can't have volunteer individuals be council people. I don't think that's right. And then we got to look at the ward system too. I mean, we've been talking about that for 20 years. Whether you have one person per ward and the rest at large. I think it's time to look at that charter and get going on that.
Probably a conversation for another agenda so we can be prepared for it, but relevant nonetheless. So I appreciate it coming up and appreciate your comments, Dean. All right, so we do have a draft resolution for our consideration. And I want to make sure people give themselves an opportunity to read it, or I guess I can just read it. It's rather straightforward. So declaring a vacancy to exist in the office of First Ward Council Member with the term expiring January 2, 2025. Whereas Councilmember-elect Darren Shealy provided his written intent not to take the oath of office for the First Ward Council seat that he was elected to at the November 3rd, 2020 general election. And whereas Minnesota Statute 351.026 states that a vacancy exists when an incumbent neglects to take the oath of office, and whereas Wabasha Charter Section 2.05 requires the council to, by resolution, declare a vacancy to exist in this office, now therefore it be resolved that the City Council of Wabasha hereby declares a vacancy to exist in the office of First Ward Council Member effective January 5, 2021, with a term expiring January 2, 2025. Oops. Yeah. I saw a second link there, but it's dead. So that is the resolution before us for your consideration.
I'll make motion to accept that resolution.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Moyer, second by Councilmember Walrick. Any discussion?
If I may, Darren served the community in multiple leadership roles for probably 30 years. And, he didn't take running for office lightly. And I know he did research on this particular matter. And I don't think, he or I had, and I did too, any idea that this was something untoward. So, it was an innocent, it was innocent on Darren's part, and his attempt was simply to serve the community in a different capacity. So I just want that to be out there. It's important.
I concur. Yeah. And I'll state, just so it's clear, because, I want it to be clear. This came from me and another member of council, as well as staff, just figuring out how do we deal with this member of council in the future? How are we gonna procedurally handle this? Certainly Darren was aware there would potentially be, issues from which he'd need to abstain his vote. So beneath the surface is the complexity of this, the legalities of incompatible office. So it didn't come from a public complaint. It didn't come from opposition to his winning this seat. It was well won, and it really is just this procedural stuff that's a part of our job. So that's where it's from. My question related to this part of the resolution, Mike, and maybe I've just missed this, for some reason it won't pop up, is with regards to the term. Because of the nature of special election as it would be dictated by our charter, does the term really end in 2025, or do you see it as actually ending when the opportunity presents for that next special election? I guess that's a technicality, but probably a relevant one.
No, I was spotting that as it was read out loud. I think it's written correctly because the term for the seat does end in January 2, 2025. And I think it's written correctly also because this is not the resolution that you're appointing somebody.
I see. Yeah.
So when
It's
we do
about that term.
yeah, when we do the resolution to appoint the member, then it will be January whatever 2023.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. All right, so we have a resolution. We have a second. Any further question or discussion or comment? Okay, hearing none. We'll let City Hall take us through a roll vote.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Kula, Woodley,
Yes.
Yes.
Durant.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. That helps. I know there's nothing more delightful on a Tuesday evening than having state statute read aloud, but it's important. So.
No, yeah, this is really a bummer. It's a tough one, to be honest. But your charter's got strange things in it.
It does.
That's bottom line.
Yep. And we should all be aware of that. And we had our consent agenda item 8.1 moved to general business 10.3, and that was the appointments and annual designations. We have before us the annual board and commission appointments, which need to be updated or renewed each year. We have the list of those appointments and renewals for approval. Jeff or anyone I guess we can have a motion and a second and then discussion. Is there a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion from Councilmember Sullivan.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Friedmeier. Any discussion or comment?
I just want to point out that there will be a vacancy on the Port Authority since Craig was on there.
Yes, thanks. And I just looked into whether it is the required, how the organizational documents read for the Port Authority. Tyler provided those to me, and it says two members of council shall represent on the Port Authority. And I having received that, I think just today or yesterday, that too, it seems like shall means should. I interpretive elements, I think it's suggest should. So my understanding currently is that it's two members of council will serve, so that there will continue to be two members of council. Yeah. All right, so we have a motion. Yep, any comment?
No, I was just going to comment that I was just reading the agenda. I missed everything that was said after the vote. I was going to make a motion to discuss the position of Craig Pelcom to replace Darren Shealy.
Okay, so backing up.
I think I missed that opportunity.
Sure. Let's handle this motion that's on the floor, and then I apologize, Dean. I'll take us back to that
That's
item.
fine.
Okay, go ahead. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion about the boards and commissions appointments? Otherwise, we can have a roll.
Yeah, so Mayor, under the safety committee,
Mhm.
I'm assuming number 4 should probably be Ed Grainer and not Gene Jensen.
Or thank you, safety.
It looks like they're all city employees except for Gene, who's not a city employee anymore.
Right.
So I guess I would just move to or
Amend.
amend it to include Ed Grainer on that instead of Gene Jensen.
I see Wendy and Jess nodding.
Yeah.
But
That's
that's
definitely
supposed to be the
the
ambulance
intent, so-
director.
Yeah, that was the intent.
Any other, it's good to have, it's good to proof these things. Any other, look at your own commissions and boards.
No, but I have a comment after this, so
Yep.
I can either make it now or not, but
Go ahead.
so I like the way the library board does it, where it says 2020 will renew, because I assume all these people that are in 2020 are renewing, correct? So I just point that out. I just assume that was the case, but it's nice to actually see it.
It is. Okay. Just looking through to see if ours is current. Yeah. So for instance, yeah, that's a, like for example, and on the HPC, we have a member who's indicated they will not serve in 2020. So we'll need to be making an appointment. I know to that commission. I heard somebody's voice, but it maybe sounded like background noise.
Now that you mention it, is the Utilities Commission supposed to be on this appointment?
Or are they separate? Page 2, it's the missing page 2, maybe. Can you name them, Brian, to be added so we can amend? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Probably get
Yeah,
a little help from city staff.
No, I got it. So we have
Okay.
John Cry, Mike Walrick, Steve Schmidt, Ken Cruz, and myself, I believe, are the 5 members of the Utility Commission. And then we just have some at-large city staff there as well. Did I get it right? Good.
Okay.
Actually, in noticing this, it didn't save the final copy because on the Streets Commission, you also have Juicin. And then Mayor Durand, I'm drawing a blank on who Tony just sent you.
Tony, for streets, I can't tell you. I think we'll have to take care of that separately. I should know, but there's so much transition this time of year. But what I'm hearing for sure as an amendment is we're hearing on emergency or safety. We need it changed to Ed Grainer. We need the utilities as stated by Brian. I know that Jim Knoll is retiring from the HPC. So if you want to take care of that, you can strike him from there. We'll need to make an appointment for that role. And then just make a note, we'll address the final commissioner who's escaping me in our next meeting.
It's James Matthias. I found it.
Great, thank you. Thank you. All right, so with those amendments, do we have a motion and a second?
I'll move to approve it.
I can
I'll
second.
second Tim.
Okay, I
I'll
heard
third
Tim.
Brian.
I heard a motion from Tim. I heard Brian and Dean second at the same time, but Dean's claiming he's the third. So we'll have a second from Brian Woodley and we'll take a roll vote.
Philip,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. Good thing you pulled this off the consent agenda, Jeff. It's just one of those that documents that we see it, and it's easy to miss that it's not the fully revised version. All right. Related to the item, we'll make it a new item here. Or we shouldn't make it, we'll keep it with related to the added item. So related to agenda item 10.2 in response to the vacancy declared by resolution. Dean, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I would just, we can discuss this or we can go with what we've done with in the past. Brian, I think we did this with you, with vacancy with Dave. So I would nominate Craig Falcom to replace Darren Shealy. And is that for 2 years or is that for the 4 years? 2 years. Yeah.
That was my question to Mike, which is, as he stated, unrelated to our vacancy declaration.
Yep.
I'll let Mike comment on the language in our charter, which makes it look like it would time out with the next regular election.
Right,
Yeah.
and it would.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's unique language in your charter. So if state law applied, you would have to have a special election before the next regular election. But you have a charter provision that contradicts state law, and pursuant to the statute I read you earlier, your charter governs election procedures, very specific election procedures. And your charter says, I'll just read you this part of it. In each, and this is in section 2.05, in each such case, the council shall by resolution declare such vacancy to exist, and it shall forthwith appoint an eligible person to fill the same until the next municipal election, when the office shall be filled for the unexpired term. And then if you go to section 3.01, regular municipal elections. So the question that I had was, they don't use the word regular, quote, regular, in what I just read you. They just say the next municipal election. They don't say the next regular municipal election. So one could maybe read it that section 3.01 wouldn't be the next election, but I think that would be an absurd reading of it. I think you'd have to read it to mean that that you're appointing somebody until the next regular election. And if you read section 3.01, that's on even numbered years. A regular municipal election shall be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even numbered years, commencing in 1988. So yeah, so this person, if you appoint current council member Falcom or anyone else, they'll serve until then, and then you'll have to hold a special election at the same time as the regular election, which has different processes and procedures, but will be held at the same time.
Right. So that would be my motion, Ms. Mayor.
So the motion, to clarify, is to, your motion would be to appoint former council member Craig Falcom to the role. He's in that ward, and that would, until a special election occurring at the next regular municipal election, which would be November 2022.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first by Councilmember Moyer. We have a second by Councilmember Friedmeier. Any discussion or comment?
Yeah, I see Craig's watching. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, I feel kind of obligated to do it because I had a number of people that voted for me, and they want to be represented. So yeah, I will do it for 2 years.
Great.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig, for that willingness. Any further questions?
I wasn't even going to ask them.
I don't think it's right to disenfranchise all the voters that voted for Darren Shealy. They voted for change in Ward 1 and they're not getting it. This isn't right.
Well, I'll state my view on that. I was taking a look at the election results and, thinking about the alternative, which is that 6 people make this decision. And to me, that feels much less like representation of the electorate. So with a close race, respectfully, I disagree with sort of the sentiment on that. I take very seriously the responsibility if we choose another process, that resides with 6 individuals. Some of us, I'm at large, but others representing other wards. So I look to the voters of that ward, and it was a close race. So that's just my take on.
Yeah, and I fully acknowledge that Darren won. I don't have any objection with that. It's just that I didn't know at the time that you couldn't be fire chief and councilman, or I would have said something, but I didn't know that, and none of you guys did either. So That's just an unfortunate thing that happened.
Well, we don't have ranked voting, so it's just like, I mean, it's just not right. We disenfranchised the voters that voted for Darren, and that's just not right, in my opinion. And Craig, I told you that I recommended you actually, so it has nothing to do with you.
Has anyone heard anyone express from Ward 2 in interest? And I know it's been a very short time, but I'm just curious if there's been any interest expressed to the city or the mayor that would seek to fill that position aside from Craig.
It's Brian, it's Ward 1.
I've heard none.
And I haven't either.
But who's known
To
about
be
this?
fair, it's not like I'm advertising about it. I mean, the person who I held in the utmost, with the utmost, respect through this is Darren, who won the election. So I've really, tried to maintain the privacy around this issue so that he has the privilege of this decision making. So, haven't heard from anybody, certainly haven't discussed it with members of the public.
I guess my thoughts on this would be, since this was just brand new today, probably, or the last couple of days, unless people have on social media, but I guess I would wait a month to make the appointment and just to see if there's anybody else out there. Because I guarantee you most people probably haven't heard of this.
Okay, that's great. Any other feedback? Have we heard from anybody else? I feel like we've gone around.
I would just echo what Tim and Jeff said, just simply for the fact that, that would give people a chance, and it would satisfy, Jeff's worry about being disenfranchised about it, and clearly if there's no interest, then it's a clear choice, in my opinion. And I don't feel like it's going to hurt us to wait 1 month. We could do it at the next meeting and we wouldn't miss a beat,
I'm certainly willing to retract my motion, my second.
We could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me if you want to wait another month and be sure. That I want to be sure too. So I'm fine with that.
I won't retract my motion because this is what we've done in the past, and I think we should keep what we've done in the past.
So I should just inform you, I guess, that if there is a tie vote on this, the mayor makes the appointment. And that happened in Plainview. There was a tie vote, and then the mayor just made the appointment, just said, I appointed this person. So just so you're aware of that.
Thanks.
Beforehand.
All right, so we have a motion. We have a retracted, I think I heard we have a retracted second.
I was willing to. I don't know what the procedure should be, if we should vote it down and make a motion to address
You'll
it
have to
next
vote it down,
council
I
meeting.
believe.
What?
I believe you'll have to vote it down.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
we'll keep that second in place. All right. So want to make sure we've had thorough discussion. Good points made.
Don't we need a resolution if this passes?
Do we need a resolution? As my understanding is we make the recommendation for the appointment. That's what the motion is. Is that right? Mike?
Yeah, so it's always done by resolution. I do not think you need a resolution. I think your charter doesn't require a resolution. There's nothing in statute that requires a resolution, even to declare the vacancy, let alone appoint the person. But it's customary to do a resolution. So because it's not legally required, I wasn't going to bring that up. But I think if you're going to put this off until next meeting, it is appropriate to
Prepare one.
knowing that this motion is going to be made, is to draft it. And if so I think the other issue here too is that word forthwith in the charter. So I don't think that means you can just, punt on this for forever. I think you've got to kind of forthwith make a decision. And I contemplates immediately, like tonight, But if you put it off until next meeting, you probably should be making the appointment at the next meeting, or you should be subsequently calling a quick special meeting to make the appointment, if you really want to comply with the spirit of the provision. So, I mean, if the intent is to, I mean, this gets into the strategy of it, which really isn't my area, but you know, if you're going to delay it, that's fine. I mean, I think I wasn't expecting an appointment to be made. So if you do it, that's fine. But I think the problem with it is if there's no process and you're not going to advertise for anyone else and you get to the next meeting.
We should have the information with which to make a decision. I guess I'll add to the discussion. With this motion in place, I'd like to see us discuss a process so that we're comfortable with, so that we can pursue that process through the month of January. You know, allowing the public to maybe think this over and understand the procedural complexity of it, you know, is wishful thinking and potentially generates more frustration if somebody thinks this is kind of an open case. The reality is, as Mike has stated, we need to make a decision probably in our next meeting, or it seems responsible to do it in the next meeting. So I'd invite conversation about what that process might look like. You know, Mike had alluded to other cities advertising for it. You know, I don't think we can just sort of wait around for someone to hear about it. I think we would need to have a process by which we would invite people to make themselves known, so that we would have, and then a timeline for which we would address that interest. Any thoughts on that?
I think we should advertise at least for a little bit and see if there's interest in the community in Ward 1 to serve on council.
Yeah.
My question is, let's say we get 2 people that want to serve, or 1 more person besides Craig. We're still disfranchising those that voted for Darren, because now we're choosing somebody that wasn't voted for at all. So maybe we should just call a special council or a special election next month.
I think we should put it out there to gauge interest first. I mean, that'd be a ton of waste of money if we had a special election and it was just Craig's name on the ballot.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
My whole point is, I think this is just a waste of time. You know, so let's stop playing games and let's just get on with business.
Yeah, and I don't intend, if there's other interest, I don't intend to just appoint someone else. I would have to have an election. I wouldn't just say this guy's better than the next guy and appoint them instead.
You can't have an election. That's what your charter says.
We have to make the appointment. That responsibility rests with us. So to be clear, my dog wants to weigh in. But she is a Ward 1 citizen. We have to forthwith act on this, you know, and I hear Mike saying, you know, that process needs to be explicit. So if we were to vote down the appointment of Craig, which is there's a motion and a second for, then I think we need to take action on a process, and we need to act on that process between now and the next meeting, because it is our responsibility to make that appointment forthwith.
And
I misunderstood. Yeah. So that's my fault. So it's clear to me how to move forward now and just appoint Craig, because at least he did get votes in the ward where someone else wouldn't have gotten any.
You know, we didn't have a 3-way race. We had a 2-way race. Those are the only 2 people that had interest in the award. I appreciate that people made the realization that Craig or Darren were running, so they didn't feel as though they may have needed to. But if we appoint anybody besides Craig, we're disenfranchising all those who voted for Craig. And it was nearly 50-50. It was off by 10 votes, what KK said, I think. And I think that's probably right. You know, Craig has been a solid representative of Ward 1, and he's thorough and researched in his efforts. It hasn't been a controversial seat. And so I would support still putting Craig on. And to another point too, I know that I believe Darren at the middle of December put it out on Facebook that he wasn't going to be taking the seat. I know it's Facebook, it's not an official way of communication, but I do know that at least it was out there, he made it public, I think about that time.
Yeah, I apologize. Now that I'm clear on the process, I'm ready to move forward with Craig. I don't think there's any reason to wait. He does a great job, super involved, and I would support the move.
So I'll call a question and ask for a vote.
Oops, I was going to say thank you, Dean. Question's been called. We have a motion and a second, and we'll take a roll vote. So the motion is for the appointment of Craig Falcom to resume the Ward 1 spot through the 2022 election, at which point in the general election, there will, concurrent with the general election, there will be a special election for that seat. All right, we'll take a roll vote.
Walrick,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Stella,
No, for reasons stated.
Durand.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate healthy discussion. Craig, I really appreciate your willingness to serve. We will come to, understand whatever formalities need to occur. I don't know if your email is still in, can be reinstated, et cetera, but I really, really appreciate this. I think continuity in this moment is important. I think representation of the electorate is important, and really appreciate it. So glad you didn't move off to a sunny island.
No, not like Ed Grainer. He's got a palm tree behind
I
him.
know, Ed's in Tahiti. All right. So
Thank you for everything. I know it was a difficult situation, but something has to be done. So
precisely, yeah, and it's our responsibility to decide what that is. So thanks, everybody. We have no additional general business, correct? Yep. We have the donations. So we have, I don't know what it is. I can never open the donations by the end of the meeting. Whoever can open the donations, it would be a privilege if you would read the donations, and then we could have a resolution to accept them. They just won't open for me. See if I can get it.
Nor me.
Not you.
Mayor, I got it up. I can read them if you'd like.
Thank you, Brian. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Donations, these are all for the library. Craig and Nancy Falcom, $25. I'm sorry, that's in memory of Pete Kloss. Rollin and Mickey Nelson in memory of Lester Jacoby, $25. Friends of the Library in memory of Judy Vaunch, $25. Marlene Schuweiler in memory of Judy McNallen, $50. Eleanor Groby in appreciation of the River Book Walk, $300. Wabasha Main Street Artists on Main Street Grant, $200. Burkhart Raymer Post 4086 for display shelving, exactly $4,237.74. Patricia and Thomas Haskett, $100. Java Jim and Jan Casper for a birdhouse built by Dave Kennebeck, $30. And in memory of Jim Abbott, from the following donors, $5,450. And the list is daunting. I will defer reading that. It would be available if anyone's interested. From the police, or for the police, Betty Bronner Fisher and Marvin Bronner, $50. Ambulance, Betty Bronner Fisher and Marvin Bronner, $100. And that concludes the donations.
Thanks, Brian. It's a pleasure to read those when we receive our agenda, because there's, often memorialization of wonderful citizens, and we just appreciate that so very much. Thank you for those donations. Do we have a resolution to accept the donations?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walrick, a second by Councilmember Sulla, and we'll take a roll vote.
Sulla,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. All right. Any further announcements, or we will entertain a motion to adjourn this evening?
I move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Walrick, second from Councilmember Friedmeier, and we'll take a roll vote. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening. Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
Lula,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Durant.
Yes. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Craig, if you're still on, and everybody for a good deliberative process. Have a good evening. Good night.